Welcome to season 1 of our podcast, Chop It Up, with your hosts, Asha and Chris. For those of you joining us for the first time, Chop It Up is an offshoot podcast of our cooking class series in collaboration with Black Women Connect Vancouver. So welcome to season 1 of our podcast, Chop It Up, with your hosts, Chris and Asha. And I'm your guest host today, Patties, founder of Black Women Connect Vancouver. For those of you joining us for the first time, Chop It Off is an offshoot podcast from our cooking class. In collaboration with Black Women Connect Vancouver, Chop It Up is a community-based cooking class hosted and by your founder, Asha from Kula Kitchen, and Chris Boreland, founder of Elbo, Patties. Chop It Up features guests and friends from our community, all coming together through a common love for food and culture. So let's get started. What is Chop It Up? Who are you? What's your name? As we already talked about.
Yeah. I'll go first.
All right, you go first, Chris.
Okay. I'm Chris, aka Vancouver's favorite auntie. As y'all know me in the streets for slanging the patties and the joy and the love and, you know, a little bit of the ratchet. And Chop It Up is, I guess, a collaboration of minds, if you will. Sitting randomly one day writing just some stuff in my notebooks about how I can build community through food and I guess find my people in the culinary world. And then I found Asha, because Chop It Up didn't actually have a name then, but it was an idea. And then I guess with that, the energy just kind of flowed to Asha, then it flowed to you, and then this happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Expand on that.
Absolutely. I'm Asha Wheeldon, so from Kula Foods, aka Kula Kitchen. It's all about Afro-vegan cuisine for us and community. And so I think for me, Chop It Up is engaging in food stories of untold stories. So like really including our community members, you know, from around the world and not just one lens. And so it's been amazing to co-create that with y'all. Yeah.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed Chop It Up, and it's been a fun experience for me, and just even learning the different cultures and the people that we, I guess, interact with.
Yeah.
But also just seeing you two engage with the different chefs and the people in our community, just to be able to show them the different ways to cook food and our food stories that go with it. So why did you choose to start it? I know, Chris, you just said a little bit about, you know, scribbling notes in there, but what was kind of your motivation for this is something I really want to do?
To be real, Asha, she was like, we're doing this. I said, okay, yeah, maybe. She's like, no, we're doing this. I said, all right, then we're doing this. And then she's like, we're going to have this person as a guest, and this is how it's going to go. I was like, I really am vibing with that idea, because for me, I will have an idea and I'll sit on it,
Right.
you know, and after meeting Asha and working together on so many other projects, I was like, this is just another fun project that we're going to work on, not knowing how it was going to grow into where it's growing.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. I remember we met through a pop-up event in person. And then we started collaborating on pop-up events and just general business collaboration. But what I recognized is we were always doing stuff, we were moving, and then the one piece that was missing was the conversation. And so I think when we were kind of like thinking, or when the conversations started, we thought maybe it'd be great to just kind of take it a step further and actually sit down and invite other members to be a part of it. So it's not just us.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been pretty amazing. Like each chef that we've had on has brought on like their identity, and just it's always different. It's never the same. So I think that's been achieved. And it's been a lot of learnings there. But yeah, it was the need for a bit of a slowdown to just actually connect further beyond just doing stuff and just collaborating.
Right.
Yeah.
So what made you choose, I guess, the structure of Chop It Up? Because it is different from what you see in Vancouver, Lower Mainland cooking classes, I guess, the standard. What was kind of the choice of, okay, this is actually the structure, we'll make it?
Yeah. I think specifically plant-based. Beyond the structure was, I haven't really seen classes where it feels like you're meeting with friends. You know, you're not just coming in for this, like, we're going to make this, and this, and then move on. There's a little a deeper dive. Right. And even the people that are coming out, not many have actually been to a cooking class. So I think it creates a different space, and you wouldn't really classify it as your standardized, cooking, whether it's virtual or in person. Yeah, that's what I've observed so far. And for me personally, it's like any space I go into, I need to feel like I'm at home, and there's an ease to it. And so we've been, pretty selective in terms of who we're bringing on for that reason.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I say for myself, the structure that I kind of had, the idea of Chop It Up was, I saw the popularity of, was it the sip and paints, where, you're basically painting by numbers. And I was like, we can easily take that and incorporate it as food. So that's why a lot of our classes, everything's already done for you.
Yeah.
You come, you drink, everything's in front of you, where you just like pick up the salt that's already measured, the carrots that are already weighed out, and you put it all together, and you're going home, you can tell your friends you're a chef.
Yeah.
That's right.
Just think of that simple.
Yeah. Because when people hear cooking class, it's intimidating. Because, you're like, okay, it's something different that I want to do, but at the same time, so it makes sense that you'd, make it like the sip and pay. That's a good idea. I never really thought about that. Now that I think about the cooking class, I'm like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Really
and making
easy.
it accessible, right?
Yeah.
As easy as possible. And especially when we're introducing a new form of cooking for some people, right? I think that's super important. Yeah.
So, if you were to pick a dream guest, who would it be?
One we've had on already, or one we're thinking or would love to?
Okay, let's do it local and just in general, just who would it be?
Asha, you go first.
You go first. I already had my dream person.
Who?
I mean, friends, please do not take offense, but Batty Banks was.
Oh, you see, you took my answer though.
Listen, Batty, please come back.
Oh.
Yeah.
I missed that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were amazing.
Yeah, no.
That was. That energy was really incredible. Good. I think like every person brought their personal experience, but for me, Batty definitely brought this whole thing that we could not even imagine would be able to implement into Chop It Up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then someone you could just right now, if you had the chance to bring them on.
Oh.
Maybe someone like famous.
Yeah. I would. Oh, there's a couple. You go first.
Like famous?
Yeah, or any chef that you'd like to bring on.
Well, there's a chef that I really admire on Instagram. They work for Bon Appetit. Their Instagram name is Tuna Turner, but it's Devon.
Yeah.
Caribbean chef. Oh. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
We're both ambassadors for another. I think it's a queer travel company called Connect.
Okay.
So they do like queer travel to Jamaica. So that's kind of how, through same way I met Asha, through Instagram.
Yeah.
And I just love their work and their take on food and art.
Yeah.
So that would definitely be a dream guest, especially like just seeing how they would do, because we do our long tables.
Yeah.
How they would do a spread for us. Yeah. Local, you kind of took that one. But I would say probably just any of like my close friends that I have now. We all have an interest in cooking.
Yeah.
So maybe Alan.
Okay.
He went to hospitality in Europe, so he does understand food very well. And he's the key. Anytime we're around each other, we're laughing. We like to say we bring the noise when we're in the room. So I think that would be great energy to have for one of our classes. So yeah.
Oh goodness. There are a lot of people. I think in terms of the famous side, I would love to cook with Pinky Cole from Slutty Vegan.
I was just gonna say, I'm like, every time I talk to you, you always say Slutty Vegan.
Yeah.
anything Slutty Vegan. I would. Yeah.
Just
to pick her brain a little bit, and for sure.
Really good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really fun.
Tabitha.
I was just gonna say, I'm like, she's either gonna say Slutty Vegan or Tabitha. I was waiting for you to say Tabitha.
Both of them.
Yeah.
Tabitha.
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would definitely be your best for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is, I guess, your mood for cooking? Like, what would you, like we do Chop It Up and we kind of like, we have music and things happening. So what is your kind of like, what brings you into like, okay, this is my cooking mood? Do you have music? Do you
Yeah.
have like an atmosphere, or what is it?
You know, I had that experience yesterday. We had a catering event, and I know it's gonna be great when there's music on.
Yeah.
I had music in. I was at our commissary kitchen, but my headset was on, and like you can really feel the vibe and that connection. And so if I'm at that space, I know it's gonna be great. Like it's gonna be a great experience. I dislike rushing
Yeah.
a lot. So like if I'm finding myself in a rush, like
No.
you've seen what happens when there's rushed experience. It actually shows up rushed. So yeah, this was for, you know, a program that I really care about, and like, not that I don't care about everything else. I love everything I do, but specifically when there's that energy, it really does come through
Yeah.
in the food and, you know, the final product. So yeah, that was just yesterday. It was amazing. It was a great day. Yeah.
I guess my mood, I have like different moods, if you will.
Yeah.
There's a mood when you're at work. So I work for another plant-based company in Vancouver, and that one is more like fast-paced. You're always going.
Right.
And, like, I run a team. So that mood is very like high energy. I'm hyper. I'm just like, okay, guys,
Right.
let's do this. Let's get this done. And then there's the mood at home where I have like my Erica Badu on.
Yeah.
I'm lighting a candle. I have my wine ready, and I'm just sautéing onions. I'm taking my time, slow cooking. I'd have to say it goes slow cooking and then restaurant rushing. And
Right.
Elbo's like right in the middle where, because it's mine, I can go either way I want.
Yeah.
Most times I'm going slow cooking because when
Yeah.
they order something, I'm like, you're getting it on Saturday
Right,
next
right.
week because I'm tired.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
so nice. Okay, well, tell me. Okay, we're gonna talk about vegan cooking, vegan food, and then also like Afro-vegan. What's the difference in, I guess, the culture you see in Vancouver? So first, tell us your vegan story, and tell us a little bit also about your businesses.
Yeah. So my vegan story began in, I think, around 2016. And at that point I would say plant-based. First it was for my own reasoning. I felt like I wasn't digesting certain foods, specifically animal-based foods. Red meat in particular was not settling well. I was having a lot of digestive issues. So I had gone back and forth over 15 years. But officially, I think 2016, I started meeting other people that have adopted a plant-based diet. And then further, I met my now husband, and both my brother-in-law and, you know, my mother-in-law were vegans for a very long time.
Oh, wow, okay.
And so that was quite eye-opening when we first had our first holiday together. And the way I rope anyone into my life is through food. So like I got to prepare one of the meals, and I was able to kind of, just veganize it. It was quite simple. I was quite surprised by it. And I think it kind of unlocked a bit of creativity for me.
Right.
And I've always loved cooking, but I think it just like elevated my experience personally. And and now being vegan, I think one of the big takeaways is like that impacts of looking at, you know, current status of how we consume is just way too much. We look at a more scarce lens, but we're in an abundant space, right? Specifically in the West, I think we just overuse everything, including the way animals are treated. And so I've made a choice not to include that into my lifestyle and not be part of that whole sphere. And now I use my platform in Kula is to incorporate, and the second part is Afro-veganism. And for me, it's like, I'm African. I'm always going to be African first. I'm Black. And so I think marrying the two really speaks to humane way of looking at all beings, but also like strong focus on my culture and overall identity and just the richness of it. And so I always, wherever I can plug that in, I'm not just vegan, I'm African, I'm vegan, I'm a Black woman. And I'm now able to kind of, it's really like, it's hard to say this, but like when you have that positive impact of, you know, someone who's either tried your food and they've never experienced East African cuisine. They are all of a sudden introduced to that, and in a format that is plant-based. Like recently, it was yesterday, we had this ginger beef with the pili pili sauce, and it was just like the shocking revelation that this is plant-based, and we didn't have our vegan on the label, and then we get to have these conversations, and like you see the ultimate change that's like starting to, you know, settle in for that person. Yeah, so I think bringing that to Chop It Up is such a huge and big thing for us, and I think I can go on, but there's a whole change and a movement that we're not really talking about a lot, and that is like our communities are actually adapting more of a plant-based diet, like 5 times more than the general public, both in the US and Canada. And so this tells me that we are a little more aware of what we're consuming, and we're wanting to take more of that reign. And so, yeah, I think Chop It Up brings that in with the stories, the food stories.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would say my vegan journey, when did we meet? 2018?
2018.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when it started.
Yeah.
And it's still like
Yeah.
has its ebbs and flows.
It's a journey
of it. But like I said, 80% of my life now is vegan cuisine and vegan conversation, or sorry, plant-based conversations. Yeah, it's become a lot easier now, because before, thinking about going vegan or going plant-based, you're just like, that's for white people. You know what I mean? We don't do that.
Yeah.
Because it was just like, you know, you can replace this with like a potato. It's like, no.
Someone's put a
I don't
bland
want
tofu
that.
right in front of you. You're like,
tofu.
That's like
absolutely
everything
not.
was tofu. I'm just like, I don't want it. But then you're seeing kind of like what Asha's doing, and really showing you that our culture in its roots is vegan.
That's true.
It's plant-based, you know? It's what we know. It's how we grew.
Yeah.
Everything else was basically kind of forced upon us. So we're going back to our roots. And then when I'm seeing that, I'm just like, okay, plant-based isn't just for the white people. It's really, it's us. It's us.
rooted.
We really are,
Yeah.
you know, the carriers of this nutrition.
Right.
So it was a lot easier to kind of start to transition into plant-based, because now I'm eating foods that I recognize that reminded me of my childhood. And I said this to you when we first met at the pop-up. Like, her food actually brought me to tears because it reminded me of my mother's cooking, right? So I was just like, okay, I can do this. I can go on this journey and share it with other people and bring other people into this as well, without the rhetoric of, oh, plant-based is for white folks.
Yeah.
Because I think that's something that still really is a stamp, especially in Vancouver, where plant-based cooking is still very much the face is, you know, a white woman.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
When it's quite the opposite, especially when you come to our classes and you see the mixed crowd of everyone, and even our guests, you know. And that's one thing I love about Chop It Up. Even though some of our guests may not be plant-based, we challenge them to create plant-based dishes within their culture. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think meeting people where they're at is
Exactly.
crucial. And I think one of the things that we're all, because sometimes what happens is I'll go to an event and I've never met, you know, the people in there. I'll be like, oh, I'm vegan. It's like,
Yeah. Every time.
it's like,
I don't know what to do.
I'm
with
about
it.
to
It's like
recruit
you're
you.
an alien or something. It's so crazy.
and then we start talking and I'm like, okay, let's talk. And I think it's the historically that the lens and the voice that can sometimes land negatively when this is a positive and just an incredible experience that can also be fun and light, and it doesn't have to be so heavy, right? So I think, in a cooking experience and like a community environment, it just welcomes people in. And there's actually not a perfect way of doing it, which I think that's one of the fears from some of the messaging that we've seen socially of like how to be. I'm seeing the shift now. I'm starting to see more people of different identities that are able to kind of lend their voice in and bring different flavors, and I think that's needed for sure.
Yeah. Why do you feel that people look at it negatively? Like, because even for me, for example, like my husband's vegan and he's been vegan for like 5-6 years. I'm more like pescatarian, going vegan.
Yeah.
But at home we mostly eat vegan because he is. And so but I noticed, like, if we go out to places or friends, family even, like my mom, like when we're getting married, she's like, what will I cook him? Like, it's like the stress they put on
stress comes.
themselves.
Yeah.
And then slowly they start to realize, like, oh, I actually do like this food, or, you know, when they
Yeah.
start to adapt to it. But
Yeah.
sometimes people don't adapt to it, and they're like, okay, well,
Yeah.
if you're going to come, eat before you come, or, you know, like,
Right.
why do
Right.
you think that people get so stressed out, or maybe like borderline rude, actually?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I've seen both, and I think there's that change. There's a fear of like change or the unknown, generally, or it could also be someone who's had a terrible experience with someone who was not very welcoming in that, you know. And for me, I've experienced the negativity also, and personally, that it did kind of like make my experience take a bit longer. You don't want to be in a community where you don't feel seen, you don't feel like, you know, you belong, or could be harmful.
Right.
So I think sometimes it is an experience of someone who's like coming off like, you know, looking at that perfection. But then I think overall there's also that fear of change, especially when many of us have been consuming animals like from a young age.
Yeah.
Like changing that is a lot. So you may feel the threat as soon as this person comes in. As a Black person, I experience it when I walk into a room, and
Yeah.
You're like, what's one more thing?
like you know the feeling,
Yeah.
right? You know,
Yeah.
when you're walking in and it's like the whole shift of attitude.
Yeah.
And I it's funny now, I see that in being vegan, and I'm just like, okay, you should just like, I'm gonna talk to you about food no matter what, vegan or not, but like I don't understand where the threat is personally, but I think fear of change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fear of differences as well.
I know you talked about how Black people are shifting back into plant-based lifestyle, and I've noticed that actually in Vancouver a lot more. Even when we do events for Black Women Connect Vancouver, there's a lot more vegan options than we do for meat options now. Sometimes we just have plant-based instead, just to make it easier.
Love
also
to hear it.
but yeah, like, what do you think that is? I know that we talked about going back to our roots, but specifically in Vancouver, I'm noticing that a lot more, and I don't know if it's like we're just being more open about it, like we're having more conversations, or are people in Vancouver just, I don't know what it is, or if you even have an answer.
Yeah, I do, but yeah.
I see it as we're taking up those spaces again.
Yeah.
You know, we're really standing on our own and showing up, because again, I mean, it's just a conversation that happens here where it's just like, oh, there's only like 5 Black people in Vancouver.
Yeah.
So then now we're kind of having that conversation in the plant-based vegan community, where they're like, oh, there's only like 2 vegan Black people in Vancouver.
Yeah.
No, we hear those conversations, and now we're showing up to be like, this garbage you're talking needs to stop. We're here. We're going to get recognized, and we're going to take up space. So I think that's what it is. We're now really just stepping into our own, and we're taking up space, and we're not apologizing for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in Vancouver specifically, I agree 100%. There's a lot more access to the foods. And it's more, I wouldn't say diverse. We're working on it.
Another conversation like that.
I think accessing our wellness. I think control of that is also part of it, part of controlling the narrative, but also, I mean, our health system is not the best. We paint it. Canada really paints it very well. Good job, Canada. But it's not that great. And I think dialing into Black women and how we're treated in the healthcare system, you barely can get a doctor. And when you have a doctor, you really need to show what's going on, because not everyone's advocating for people of color, and specifically Black people and Black women. So I think we are starting to look at how we feel in terms of including consumption. So I think globally there is that conversation, but in the West, in the US and Canada, we're also like really looking at how we can just control the narrative, but also take care of ourselves. And that really goes back to, you know, our ancestral form. You know, I grew up in Kenya, where we grew our vegetables in like a rural area. We grew our vegetables. Most of the food we consumed was from land because that was accessible. And then animals, like, were not consumed daily. And I mean, I can go on about colonization, because we did not consume these animals until a certain period of time. So I think there is that spiritual sense of reconnection, but also like in a more to kind of like take more power of ourselves and our identities and our wellness. We are really thinking about it. And further to that, we're not just consuming, like, it's not just about like meat alternatives or whatever. It's actually whole foods. And so there's a bit of that additional step. So I did a bit of research because this is an area that I really like deeply care about and why I actually started Kula. Right now, in terms of the general public, there's in North America, mostly in the U.S., because you know how Canada does our stats. It's about the general public adapting plant-based is about 5%, and of that, 8% is African Americans, right? So that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
And so again, this conversation is not happening often, but you're starting to see faces that look like us that are showing up. It's like Tabitha Brown showing up, right? It's Pinky Cole, like who's currently running one of the largest, fast food chains, right? So I think that shift of who is actually representing the food is coming forward with more diversity. So I think there's a few mixtures there. Yeah.
And what advice would you give someone starting, I guess, their plant-based journey, even if it's something like, okay, once a week, or how would you, I guess, adjust to it? And like Chris, for you, it's something that, you said it's a journey. And what does that journey mean to you?
I guess my advice, my journey was different because I am a chef. So it wasn't the hardest transition to make food taste good.
Yeah, that's fair.
Season.
Yeah.
Seasoning is vegan.
But it's true, seasoning.
But I guess for maybe someone that has no cooking experience, first off, come to Chop It Up, learn something new.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And secondly, just do some research, get some cookbooks.
Yeah.
Instagram is a great tool to find other vegan chefs that align with kind of what you're looking for in food. And go try places, just try different things. Yeah, you're gonna find things you don't like. You're gonna find things that you do like.
Yeah,
that's how I kind of had my journey.
Yeah, I just started changing the food that I like. So it's not necessarily major adjustment, but instead of cooking chicken, I either use I started with beans and lentils because that's like meat alternatives. Didn't know anything about that back then. So it was, I cooked with beans and lentils, and that alone kind of like was the first adjustment. I made sure I had all the spices that I typically like. So seasoning is actually everything, because it changes the whole dish. And then I think as you're gradually, and take it as to your own pace. Right. I think when you're making some people do make those adjustments within night and day. But I needed some time, and then slowly removed different food items off my plate. And because of that, it actually was an easier transition. So yeah, that's my advice.
Yeah. And don't be hard on yourself.
Yeah.
If you slip up sometimes.
Yeah, it happens.
It happens. Exactly.
There's no perfection. No one is judging. There's no one judging you, right? There's
not
no,
in this room anyways.
Not in this room. There's no grading. There's no grading system that says you've made this mistake. It's like, think of like if you're looking at a more, why are you doing it? I think also learn about that. Why are you actually doing it? And I think that allows you to connect to yourself, and then hopefully you meet some people that are also in that place. And but yeah, definitely take it easy.
I like what you said when you were just like, ask yourself why you're doing it. Because I know in the beginning, especially growing up, a lot of people weren't doing it for the right reasons. They're doing it just as, a personality trait. It's like, that's good for you, girl, but let me eat my chicken. But then now it's just like, I mean, I still see that today.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people are just kind of doing it because it's it's a fancy word, They can put a little leaf emoji beside their name and you're just like, oh, I'm drawn to you.
Stop.
But let's be real, you're licking them fingers off the ribs. It's like, you need to relax.
Yes. I've known so many people that were like, I'm vegan, and then I'm like out with them, and they're like eating chicken all day.
chicken.
Say like
Come
I
on.
eat plant-based sometimes. Like,
Exactly.
you don't need to like make a step. It's just funny. Yeah.
But that is important. Just like, again,
Yeah.
ask yourself why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And if you're doing it for, health reasons, or you just want to be more conscious of how you're consuming your food, that is your journey.
Yeah.
And again, you slip up.
Yeah.
But
There's no
such
grading
is life.
system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
There's
it's
no
true.
grading, but you will not find me with chicken. I'm so
Well-
telling you this right now.
You're right. You're not.
Do not invite me to eat chicken. I will not come. Unless it's vegan.
I remember when I was pregnant, I was like, Asha, I'm craving meat so bad. And it was so weird because I'm like, I hadn't eaten meat in like years. And so I'm like, what? I don't know what to do. And you're like, don't judge yourself. I'm like,
Just eat it. Yeah.
just eat it. I was like, okay. And then after, I was like, oh, I don't even like crave it at all. It was the weirdest thing. But
Yeah.
I definitely noticed like I felt myself like shaming myself for wanting this. But noticing
do
my
that,
body
yeah.
was kind of like reverting back, didn't know what to do. And yeah, it was an interesting part because I'm like, why do I feel so bad?
Yeah.
And and I think that a lot of people feel that way too.
Yeah.
Where they don't know like how to not shame themselves in that journey.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
yeah, it's true.
That
it's a
happened to
journey.
me. Same thing. I was
Yeah.
pregnant and with Hallie, and I was craving like not the best food. Like it was terrible, and I went through this whole thing with my head and just like, feeling so shamed.
Yeah.
Like, and then I ate it.
Yeah.
I ate it.
Yeah.
I'm still like, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here.
A little confessional moment.
I did. I
get
did.
it. I did.
I absolutely did. But it's like, why we're so hard on ourselves, and I
Yeah.
think that's that social piece, and like
Yeah.
it doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, no, it's true. So tell me a little bit about owning a business as a Black person in Vancouver. What does that look like and your experience? And we're in Black History Month.
Oh
What
yes.
is your experience right now?
Do you want me to go first?
Please.
Do you want to go?
You got some things
You
to
sure
say.
you
Go
want me
for
to
it.
say anything today in
Yeah.
February? Do we
We
have
have
what's the time? It's amazing because when I moved to Vancouver from Toronto, I was looking for community. I came here and I was like, where is everyone, right? And when I say everyone, it's just like I felt like I was in a whole other country.
Yeah.
And I was actively looking for these spaces, and I think running a black owned business has allowed me to like, I'm quite introverted naturally, and so like I have to do something, and being able to produce food and being part of events has allowed me to like build such a strong community, and even though like I came from a place where there are so many of us, I felt like I think there's a lot more intention that's happening in Vancouver because there aren't as many of us. So we are going out of our way. So I think, I feel like I'm part of this incredible movement. It's like a small piece of it. And, I think there's definitely some struggles, right? I don't think it's for this podcast, but I would love to see more people engage Black-owned businesses because it's like we say this, but the reality is we have to be like 300% more on point to be able to deliver, to be able to get the same engagement as our counterparts. And just as an example, this is February, Black History Month, Black Features Month, and there's just this like afterthought with our businesses and folks that are just looking to engage, literally reaching out the first week of February to engage us for the first time. So there's that. So there are two feelings, but I feel empowered to actually have a business, and to really have a business that speaks to my values and is serving the people that it's serving and lending that voice as well. So I feel really grateful for that.
Same.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for the ability to, I guess, express the way I want to express myself in my business. I'm a bit more off the beaten trail, if you will, when it comes to running a business in Vancouver, or just in general.
Yeah.
I really wanted to, when I started Elbo, I really wanted to kind of, I guess, put my foot into it with my whole identity being the forefront. Again, I've been cooking for 20 plus years, and I've never really felt seen nor heard in these spaces. And I cooked Spanish cuisine forever. And the one thing that stood out, because it was front facing, people would come up and the first thing would be like, oh, are you Spanish? I'm like, no. And they was like, then why are you cooking this food? Like you have to be from this region to cook this food. And I even get that now, even when I'm cooking Caribbean food and, you know, Caribbean descent. Like, I mean, the people in this room know the whole debacle that happened when I got that write up in the newspaper, and this woman attacked me she said I was appropriating Caribbean food. And I was just like, it hurt a lot because I put so much love into my identity, my Caribbean ancestries and my family. And I really buried that for a very long time because, you know, the Caribbean doesn't have the best relationship with queer folks. So when I said I'm starting Elbo, I am going to marry the two.
Right.
It's going to be very Black, very queer, and very Caribbean. I'm going to stand onto something that is me.
Yeah.
Something that maybe hasn't been seen before, and the conversation isn't there. What's difficult about it in Vancouver is they have this expectation that you have to run a business a certain way. And if you're not kind of ticking off those boxes, they don't take you seriously. So I guess for me, I am kind of taking a loss in that aspect where I'm not getting, like, you know, the campaigns, or I'm not getting the big companies to cater because they go on my Instagram and I'm, you know, a little wild on there sometimes.
Someone might be
with my
twerking.
meme game, but
I love it.
but I stand by it because, you know, one, I'm having a good time and my food is great. So you take some, you lose some, but at the end of the day, I love what I'm doing. I love the community I built around that. And now being Black History Month, it's random that I am as busy as ever. I'm raising plenty of eyebrows to it. And I'm still sitting on if I really want to do a call out post, telling them to keep that energy, because I've already rocked the boat too much with everything else I've done. It's like, I really want somebody to want to come. It's like, listen,
Let's do it.
let's wait till after February, then call me again.
Yeah,
Because the price
Yeah.
is going up in February.
Yeah,
After
yeah,
February,
yeah,
the price is going up.
Yeah.
I mean, I did say yes to all the catering.
I mean,
I'm not going to
we
stop the
still
bag, okay?
need-
I was gonna say, I'm like,
I know we need to keep it running.
I was like, this
so-
last minute, I'll make it work.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I think I answered the question.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, you
okay.
did. You definitely
Yeah.
answered the question. And I
Rambling.
think that it is that, I think all of us after 2020 and everyone rediscovered Blackness again, I think we're trying to figure out that balance of, like you said, like saying yes, saying no, who is performative, who's not, is it going to be the start of a relationship? And I think that even for me, I've learned to just say, okay, we can do this partnership, but what's our future like partnership going to be? I'm not just going to do this one time, unless it's like a one-time event and, you know, it's like for Black History, but moving forward, is there going to be more opportunities for that? And I think that Vancouver's starting to realize, I think after that first year when we're all like, we're not doing this anymore.
No.
And now they're like, oh, we have to pay them like
Yeah.
for their work? What is that? So I also noticed like a shift also in the way they ask and who's asking this time around after the Black Square. So I think that it's going to be interesting, I think, in the next couple of years what's going to happen. Because I do see a rise in Black businesses, even though some of them are closing. I think Vancouver's also doesn't know what to do with it because they're like, oh,
Yeah.
they're there, but we don't know how to engage.
How to
and, you know, we
engage, yeah.
want to have them around, but not sure how. So I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of the future of Vancouver with Black cuisine for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Oof. Listen, do not contact us the first week of February because this calendar is full. The best time is just like you do all the other events, is plan it out quarterly.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, just give us time.
Otherwise, you might be getting us in March, and we're still around. We're still around March, April, May, June, the rest of the months.
Yeah, more Black.
And I think that's what it is. It's just like this afterthoughtness is a problem, and I love what you said there about this unknown point of how to engage. Just like any other businesses, reach out, have a budget. It's not free.
Well, it's like today I just came from a catering
Yeah.
and I was handing out patties for free, and it was like I was just set up in the middle of their whatever hall. I don't know what you call that big space. And all the employees were coming down for their lunch break. Like, oh, what's this for? What's the event? I was just like, honestly, I don't even know. I told there was one other Black girl that I was like, I think it's because I'm Black. And she's like, probably. I was like, well, you know what? I'm getting that back. I'll see
Yeah.
you again, maybe.
Yeah.
See you soon.
I want to go tell your friends you love this, so I can come back
Yeah.
for Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what are we doing?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
not this one flash in the pan type of mentality. I can't live off that.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable that
No,
way.
it's not sustainable at all. Okay, so Chop It Up. What does the future of Chop It Up look like for this year?
Ooh. More conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with the intention of this podcast is to just have more of a moment, you know, to really chop it up and talk and bring on our friends here and just talk about everything that's affecting our community. The events will continue on, but I think we want to just dial it in further with our intention around connection and food stories. Yeah, I'm really excited for what's to come this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with Asha on that one. I think one thing with Chop It Up is, as fun as it is with the element of cooking and having that conversation, we're not really getting deep into the guest as much as we want to, because our time is limited. There's only so much time people can kind of sit after they've eaten. You know, they want to eat and leave. But I think with the podcast, they can really sit with it, their feelings, and really talk from their heart what it is they want to talk about. And, you know, as we had a Gray on
Yes.
for one class, I'd love to have Gray on the podcast to really
Yes.
kind of speak on more about raw food, you know, speak raw about it.
Yeah. Be raw.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We get to like take our time more on these conversations.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so
Yeah.
much for having this conversation. I
Thank
really enjoyed
you.
it. I think, I'd loved hearing more about your perspective and everything that you've kind of are going through right now, having like a Black business and also starting Chop It Up, which has been amazing to be a part of. It's been fun for me and even to experience what that looks like in plant-based diet. And I see just how genuine and kind you are in the events, and people really truly enjoy it every time I hear back. And so you're doing a great job, and I love being a part of it. So thank you for inviting me on. But yeah, this is the end of the podcast, and I hope we have more conversations.
Absolutely. I just want to shout out Black Women Connect Vancouver.
Absolutely.
Because listen, Chris and I are not the most organized people. We're just, and Natasha has really kept us on point, and it's just been really amazing collaborating with you and you know, the whole team. So thank you so much.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
I
you.
love
Can't wait to do more.
I know. I'm going to learn how to use Google Docs.
Yes.
I promise. I can get myself together.
Yep.
We'll all be organized.
We're going to be so organized, but it's just been amazing because
Yeah.
it's not a one-person project.
Yes,
And it really is just giving that love back to our community. And this is our time. We volunteer it, and everyone's just been so gracious in supporting it. So we couldn't have done it without you.
Well, thank you.
Like,
It's
truly.
been fun. Yeah, I love it.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Hope to see you next time.
See you soon.
Thank you for listening to our podcast episode. You can find us on all podcast streaming platforms, and you can watch us on our YouTube channel, Chop It Up. Until next time.